Welcome to End User Input. This is Tayson. We got Justin.
Hi.
Jason.
Hey.
Garrig the asshole beatbox.
What?
Exactly. And I hate to put this right up at front, but we got to get it out of the way. Leonard Nimoy has passed.
What?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sad.
Yeah,
Canadian dollar or $5 bills are starting to have him on them, and Canada's pissed about it.
I did see that as I guess a tribute to Leonard Nimoy. People have been defacing Canadian money, making some of the people on Canadian currency look like Leonard Nimoy.
So
that's the best thing ever. They should just put him on the $5 bill.
They should do it.
Yeah.
I don't know what he has to do with Canada that they would do that, but they should do it anyways.
Because it's Canada. They like people, especially Spot.
Yeah. So
But he's
go ahead.
he's not Canadian, right? I mean, is he?
No,
I
I'm
don't
pretty
know.
sure
Okay.
he's not.
Yeah.
I don't know for sure.
I'm defo Canadian.
Them and their flappy heads will always love him, though.
Did
Yeah, it's pretty sad.
like, wow,
to see,
Terrence, Leonard Nimoy
Leonard
died.
Nimoy passed. He was a cool dude. Just even outside of his role as Spock and all the Star Trek stuff,
Yeah.
he was a really cool dude. He had a singing career that I didn't really know about until recently, and it was kind of, most people seem to hate it, but it was really funny to watch. And he was just a really cool dude, really interested in actually furthering science and stuff, even though he wasn't personally a scientist, really. He'd been in all the science fiction stuff, but
Yeah.
he cared about science and cared about people learning and kind of just trying to move the world forward and make it a better place, which is really cool. It's not often that you find someone who genuinely cares about that. So,
It's so true.
it's sad to see him go.
Yeah, on a slightly related note, just because of, people who want to, further the world, I've been watching the YouTube channel Tested, which is where Jamie and Adam from Mythbusters do a lot of stuff.
There's the shout out to me for that.
And I love it. Yeah, thank you for showing me that, Hegrig the asshole.
Yeah, because you're so cool. He would never have.
I'm the one that found it and showed it to him, damn it.
And I thank you. I do appreciate it. But, I've just been watching a lot of that. And, they really seem to want to make it so people can go out and do things rather than, not.
Be in their house.
Yeah.
Well, and Leonard Nimoy, I mean,
learn.
Yeah.
all these young impressionable minds, and they watch Star Trek, it's like there are so many scientists and especially people at NASA. You know, because I think him and the lady that played Uhura or whatever from the original, she I think was an actual was or is NASA recruiter or does publicity for him and stuff.
Possibly.
Well, in all of my travels, I've never met anyone more human. To make a botched reference. Moving on to, back down to Earth.
Can we talk about games?
No.
In a bit. We've got some other things to talk about.
Big things. The internet is now a Title II utility.
Oh, yeah.
Yay!
That's awesome, man.
Yeah, so the internet and its media outlets have been saying it's net neutrality is one. It's we got net neutrality. And it's not completely.
Yeah.
The internet and internet companies are regulated as a Title II utility now, so there are certain things that come along with that. That doesn't mean that all the net neutrality rules that were laid out, because net neutrality is an actual thing. There are actual rules for it that you can go look up. That doesn't mean that all of those are going to be adopted immediately. It means that the FCC can choose to put those in place and has the authority now to enforce them, because the FCC kind of put them in place before. I think it was in 2002 or 2003, and the ISPs sued them, and the U.S. Supreme Court said, hey, these guys aren't a public utility. You don't have the authority to regulate them this way. If you feel that these rules need to be implemented, then you need to reclassify them as Title II, which you have the power to do. You can absolutely do that, but you're going to have to do that first if you want them to follow these rules.
That was my understanding of that big court case too. Was it basically said you don't have the power to do this right now. Was all that court case said?
Yeah, and so the FCC, much to my surprise, because as I've mentioned multiple times, I don't trust Tom Wheeler and all of the Comcast money in his pocket, but I think there was too much public scrutiny on this for him to really do anything else. But he actually went through, and the FCC and other people reclassified as Title II. And the crazy thing was they included mobile networks like Verizon and all those guys, so they're subject to the same rules, so they can't mess with your traffic. They can't really throttle you or anything anymore. So that's a really big win that I don't think anybody was really expecting.
Yeah. But that'll be really interesting too for like data plans, because like no one's really outlined it, but like if they can't throttle you, how do they stop you? You know,
you'll still have your data cap, and they'll still charge you for overages.
Yeah, okay.
But what they used to do sometimes was they would charge you for the overages, but that data was at a slower speed anyways, so you're being charged a ton for this extra data that you went over, but it's actually lesser quality. It's a lot slower.
But at the very least, now they can't, like, you can't have an unlimited plan and have them go, oh, you're using too much internet.
Yeah, because that was a big problem with unlimited plans, because people fought to keep their unlimited plans, and so the companies were like, oh, well, it's unlimited, but once you hit 2 gigs in a month, we're gonna throttle you down to basically unusable speeds, and they can't do that anymore, which is awesome.
Yeah, like I had an interesting thing on my phone the other day. I hit 20 gigs in a month, which is mostly YouTube and Netflix and Twitch streams, because I watch those a lot on my phone. Yeah, and my phone actually warned me. It's like, you've hit 20 gigs, and I'm like, is that unexpected? Like,
it's like the phone. It's like it's not actually there's any limit you hit. It's just the phone is saying, that's a lot. Like a concerned friend, like at a bar, saying, "Hey, man, you've had a lot to drink tonight.
Are you sure you want another one?"
That's like 15 shots. Slow down, man.
Yeah. Like, and literally, it took me a month to get there, though. Like, that was like, it gave me that warning the day of the rollover.
Yeah.
So it's just like,
I've gone above that before. Back when I had unlimited data, which was a while ago, my internet in my apartment was shitty for like 2 months, and so 1 month I tethered my phone wirelessly to my Xbox and played Halo through my phone connection. And I played a lot of Halo. I would hit like 40 gigs that month.
That's awesome.
I was just like, well, I gotta play my Halo.
Anyway, back to the main topic. One of the most interesting things I saw was I watched John Oliver this last week tonight on HBO. His bit. He just had a small bit about the changing over, but he used a clip of a senator who is known to be in Verizon's pocket, and he basically said, and this isn't verbatim, I'm probably going to butcher it, but basically said net neutrality is saying that cat videos are just as important as a conference call for a double bypass heart transplant, and which is a fundamental misunderstanding of the issue, and like basically false equivalency. It's like or not false equivalency. I forget what it's called, but basically saying he thinks that more for the cat video means less for the heart transplant.
Yeah. Well, it's also obfuscation of the true heart of the issue. It isn't necessarily like that data. When you look at it, the data itself can be judged subjectively to have whatever value. Yeah. The point is the person's right to have unfiltered communication, unthrottled communication. Yeah. Yeah. That is what is the same value. So the person it's like the person who transmits the cat video versus open heart surgery stuff. Yeah. That is equally valuable. The ability to speak freely on a telecommunications service. That's the thing.
Well, and the other problem I had with that saying is it blatantly assumes that the heart transplant conference call isn't going to have the same limiting and extra money they had to pay to make sure it goes through as the cat video. It's like the heart transplant is affected just as much by not changing.
Yeah, because I mean, cat videos are mostly by YouTube, which YouTube has the ability to pay the exorbitant fees if we went to like a fast lane situation where you had to pay for access. YouTube's going to be able to pay for that. So your cat videos are going to be super fast. You're going to be able to watch all the cat videos you want. No buffering, no nothing. But maybe that hospital and some of the people involved, maybe they're a small-time hospital. They don't have all that money, so they can't pay for that fast lane access. So in that situation, net neutrality is actually better for that. Even though it's a stupid goddamn freaking argument in the first place.
Oh, yeah. It was terrible, but I'm just like, I'm just going to pick this apart.
But there's a lot wrong with that statement.
Yeah.
But well, as with any major change, the reclassification as Title II has come with a fair amount of scrutiny. Most of it really, really stupid, but not all of it completely unfounded. There are a few people, and even some tech companies who are like, hey, full regulation as a Title II utility probably isn't the best thing, because there are some things in Title II, because it was established a while back, that may not be the best for the internet, but that's why the FCC should, and if I read all the rules that they actually published and are enforcing the FCC has the ability to find those rules that shouldn't apply to the internet and just be like, okay, we're not going to use that one because that one would be ridiculous, we're not going to use that one. So the FCC has the ability to provide some oversight on this and be like, okay, yeah, we're not going to do this one because that would be really stupid. The main things...
Like the phone hookup one where they have to hook up your phone for the same price no matter where you are.
Yeah, exactly. Like price fixing is one of the major things. There's no price fixing with this Title II reclassification, which there is in home phone service and things like that.
Yeah. And it also keeps things like bundling it with your TV intact.
Yeah. So the main thing that this reclassification has done is really three main things I see it. One, it stops paid fast lanes, so they can't. It's banned that practice. They can't mess with the traffic for people who pay them more to make it faster and give them priority access, essentially.
Yeah.
Everything gets the same amount of access, which should be the full quality access all the time for everything.
Yeah.
The other thing it says, and this is a fairly generic term, but the companies have to essentially act in the public interest and do things that are in the interest of the people that they serve, which they definitely haven't been doing up to now, so we'll see how that goes.
Yeah.
And then kind of the third thing is, really it's just that, I don't know how to explain it, but it's basically, because before they couldn't mess with the traffic either, but now they can't really track it. They can't put in extra code. Since they can't tamper with it, not only does that mean they can't slow it down or speed it up, it also means that Verizon specifically was putting in like a super cookie, which if you know what cookies are on the internet, is basically a thing that keeps information across multiple internet things. Verizon was inserting a super one of those into their information packets for all of their customers that tracked you everywhere you went, saw everything you did, which is pretty bad, and now they can't do that.
Very good.
Yay.
So, and as you might guess, Verizon, Comcast, Sprint, actually not Sprint, but AT&T, all of these people in the ISP industry and the mobile industry are very upset and are planning to sue and go to the federal government and the Supreme Court.
Which, I like, especially considering how the Supreme Court, or at least, and this is just to my knowledge of the case, how they went about it last time, I think they're going to be like, well, it's changed. They had the power to do that.
Yeah, that's my understanding of it as well, is they're going to go to the Supreme Court and be like, they can't do this, and the Supreme Court's going to be like, we told them to do that in 2003. What do you mean they can't do that? That's what they're there to do.
Yeah.
They're specifically there for that purpose. That is their job.
Justin, go.
Well, okay, so I mean, essentially what they've done is they've forced the regular FCC to use a sledgehammer to do what should have been done with more finesse earlier. You know, like you mentioned, Verizon did that. What I'm curious about is the existing, because there's plenty of tiered service that already exists. I mean, hell, even my phone, the music streaming services, if you access them through the mobile network, they don't run your data charge up. Now, it's really easy to say we're going to charge these people more unless they pay us. What if they just decide that's like, so essentially there's no explicit payment going on, but they decide what in like this situation as an example, we're just not going to have that apply to people's data charges.
Yeah.
And so at that point, it's kind of like laundering the money through just obscuring everything. And so it's like, I'm kind of curious. It's going to be hard to make these determinations on when this type of tiered service is happening and trying to prevent it. And existing schemes, how are they going to get phased out? What happens?
Yeah. From my understanding of it, and my understanding of this part of it is far from perfect. So if you're listening to this, there's other sources you can go find out about this. So things like throttling traffic and making certain services run better than others, they can't do that at all anymore, no matter what.
Remember how
people like certain music streaming services not counting against your data cap? I think that's still in place because it's still going to be the same quality of data. It's just if they have deals in place for that, for mobile, they're just gonna be like, oh well, that doesn't count against you. I think that's still in place because that's a little bit different. Because the data itself isn't being treated differently or prioritized over the other. It's just like, oh well, if you use this service, then your data cap isn't affected by that. I think that's still in place.
Yeah, so there's like that to me tells me that this, like you were talking about how it's an oversimplification for people to say net neutrality battle has been won. No.
Yeah.
The classification of Title II has certain implications, one of which being you can't degrade the quality of service selectively based on payments or any other type of justification, unless it is like physical network congestion, things that can be justified from that point of view. But that still leaves wide open for if you treat data the same, but you treat the people accessing, like it's essentially like you said with the music streaming, individual data, the music streaming service can provide you music, and then this other place can. But the fact that these guys don't run up your data charge because
you're more likely to use that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so it's like that can still cause the exact same type of favoritism and non-competition. So it's like
I agree. I'm not.
It's still kind of.
I'm not necessarily for that practice, but it's a better implementation than degrading certain traffic.
Yeah, which like I do believe, as far as regular non-mobile internet data goes, like that kind of. I think under these rules they're not allowed to limit your monthly usage anymore because
I actually don't think that reclassification is Title II address data caps by normal wired ISPs. I think they can still put
as far
those
as
in
I
place.
knew, as far as I knew, at least in my area, most of those data caps had been abolished anyway.
In a lot of areas they have. I think it's mostly like in the central states, where it's a big practice. I think in the southern states too.
To be fair, not that this is terribly fair, but to be fair, there's a lot more distance between people down there.
Yeah.
So,
I know what you mean. But I think there are still places where data caps on normal internet providers to your home is a thing. I don't think it will stay that way because there's a lot of good ISPs out there who aren't doing that. People like Google, especially if Google expands more, and just some like local places. I know up where you guys live, there's actually a company not a lot of people know about called FiberNet, and they don't have any data caps, and they actually have great service and stuff, limited range, limited areas that they distribute to, but pretty good service from everything I looked at. So there are people who are not doing data caps at all, like they won't even consider it, and so I don't think that'll be a thing into the future. I think that'll be a practice that dies out.
Yeah. Well, and as far as I could tell, just based on like the competition laws, this implies too, like things like municipal internet should kind of be on the rise at least.
I think that was another thing they addressed. I think municipal internet is no longer illegal. I don't know for sure because those were. In a lot of places, those were state laws that were in place, so I don't know exactly how much control the FCC has over that. but I think that was one of the things that they tried to tackle was letting communities create their own municipal internet.
And
Which
just like
would be
rent
awesome.
the fiber areas. Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
just one more thing about data caps. I think you're right. I think it didn't do anything for data caps, but I think I remember hearing about how they addressed something about when they say a plan has unlimited internet, they kind of have to be actually unlimited. Like they have to be a little more explicit. Like they can't just say one thing and then actually have it mean something else. They have to try a little more to
like unlimited up to like
like
allowed
they have
do
to
that.
try a little more to make the consumer actually aware of what they are really buying.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that was in there as well. The unlimited actually has to be unlimited now, which is a good thing. Because if you're gonna put data caps in place, which I think is a bad idea and bad practice, but if you're gonna do it, at least let me know that I have a data cap.
Yeah. Well, and it'll be interesting to see because like this is gonna change a lot of things over the next year, if not longer. But like I'll be interested to see how like they sell speeds because right now connections are like up to 50 megabits per second. I'm on one of those connections. I average 10.
Yeah.
Wow, that's terrible. Who do you have as your provider?
Comcast.
You should probably call them. I think most companies have a thing. They say like their best effort, but I think that's usually described as you'll never fall below 80% of what you pay for. So you should be getting more than that.
Yeah, and admittedly, there is a lot of devices generally on my network, but like just for me, my standpoint, like it'll be interesting to see how their wording changes too.
Yeah.
Because like it's going to be tricky to say up to 50, you know, like and I personally would rather pay for a 25 megabit per second internet connection that's always at 25 megabits per second than a 51 that maybe is up there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree. Consistent internet is better than fast internet most of the time. But yeah, so
moving on to a different internet story that maybe Garrick will weigh in on this time. He's not even paying
I'm looking
attention.
at the game, sorry.
God damn it, dude.
it's like I'm here, I swear.
take this shit seriously, okay? Come on, man.
This is a serious
Black
production.
Desert. It looks awesome. Leave me alone.
Hey,
This is
it's
serious
like,
production.
look, come on, man.
Okay, anyway.
Damn it.
What is this, amateur
Okay.
hour?
Yes, it is. In Arizona, an act of vandalism cut internet for what, like an entire county,
It's
practically?
basically an entire county, all of their ATMs, credit card machines, basically everything.
Damn bastard.
Justin, is there more information on that? Thank you for weighing in,
They
Dick.
killed the internet.
Okay. Really, I mean, okay, so, you know, somewhere in Arizona, probably listed, not really important to the discussion. You can look it up if you need to. We will provide the link. Some group of jackasses decided, hey, it's a good idea. Let's try and cut the fiber optic line for a major backbone internet.
I think they thought it was a copper
They
line.
thought it was a copper line. They were basically copper hunter people who try and rip copper out of everything since it's worth so much money.
God, see, and they must have been really stupid because it's kind of easy to tell the difference, but
Generally.
I don't know. The thing is, the reason why this is so interesting is because if you've ever thought about what would I do without the internet, people say that a lot. You know, what would I do without the internet?
You got to find out.
Exactly. Businesses, I mean, residential, internet was completely down for at least a whole city.
Yeah.
I mean,
Which, like, this begs the question, why was there only one line going to this town?
Yeah.
Well, no, it isn't necessarily. Well, that's because fiber optic lines, like, there'll be a bundle of them for one. I mean, it's not just one line; it's a bundle.
yeah,
It's a fiber bundle, but they should have, like, as far as backbone connections go, like the actual main fiber bundles, you should have at least a backup for that.
Yeah, but see,
Because
here's the
people
thing.
cut that shit all the time on accident.
But doubling the cost for everything, I mean, well, it isn't just. I mean, you can't have redundancy everywhere.
Yeah.
You know, you really can't. I mean, you want it, but in practice.
Well, it kind of begs the question. That's like, how far out is this city? Because if it's in any sort of like actual social center other than like a podunk town, like if it's in a fairly big area, like you'd think they would have that extra one just getting internet out to somewhere else almost.
Yeah. I mean,
Well, and if you're going to pick an area that would only have one link to the outside world, it probably would be in a place like Arizona.
Yeah.
You know?
yeah.
Or Nevada.
Yeah. Out here in the Midwest desert, it's like lots of open area where it's just not really inhabited. It's a good place to find a town like this where it just has the one connection.
But it'll teach them because like they now have to do something about that, you know?
Well, because we can't have redundancy everywhere, but as far as like the backbone structure, we should have at least singular redundancy, so 2 connections in most places.
Yeah.
Which I understand
even if
is
that means-
expensive because fiber cable, like fiber bundles are pretty expensive.
Are expensive.
There's no
But
doubt
that said,
about that.
like you could have buried the other one 100 yards from the one they cut. Like it's not like it has to be forever away. They could have laid them both at the same time, just with X distance between them.
Well, yeah, but again, that requires double the investment at the time of laying the cable. And honestly, if fiber optics really, that's one of the selling points, is that they really don't require much maintenance. You put them down, and they figure out ways to push more and more data through them. Why build 2 lines when it isn't going to make you more money? And I mean, how often does this happen? I mean, I just looked at it. So they said complaints came in from places clear up at north, like the northern edge of Arizona, all the way down to Flagstaff, which if you don't have a map of Arizona in front of you, is about the top third of Arizona, the state. Yeah. It's a big area.
Still better than New Mexico.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's kind of the thing. Is like, yeah, you're not going to make more money on these things, but the people who are supplying the fiber bundles are generally not the ISPs as we know them. They're the ISPs for the ISPs. So it's people like level 3 communications and the other ones at that level. And when you're at that level and people, especially other ISPs and businesses, are getting service from you, you generally have to give a guarantee of a certain percentage of uptime. And if you're guaranteeing a certain percentage of uptime, some failover protection through redundancy, pretty good idea.
Yeah. Like these are the because Verizon and all of them are they make millions, but like there's one level above them that's making even more off of all this.
They lease those cables from other companies. Level 3 is one of the biggest ones. You'll see them everywhere.
Yeah.
This particular instance, though, it was owned by CenturyLink, is what it said.
Oh, really?
Yes, and
that
then also
some things.
Yeah, it would.
Yeah, I mean, I get the idea. Like, I'm saying, I'm playing devil's advocate when I say, why should I have redundancy when fiber optic provides near perfect uptime anyway? I mean, because this doesn't happen. But you are right. Like, I do agree with the fact that with how much stuff is reliant on it. I mean, every facet of business, TV, even cell phones, because they have the internet has to be bridged into the landline somewhere. So
every time,
every podcast.
But
yep.
But yeah, so it's like with all these different facets of life, banking. I mean, serious stuff like doctors' offices, medical records.
Pretty much, we shoved them back to the 40s.
Yeah, it's like there should be some guarantee there. Now, I mean, do you think that it should be, again, part of like regulatory measures taken? I mean, similar to what we were discussing earlier.
Yeah.
No.
You think that's called for?
Nah.
No, I don't. I think it's, as a business, and for your image, when it's your job to provide these connections, it's in your best interest to have that failover so you maintain your essentially perfect uptime. And for CenturyLink and this, that hasn't been a problem before, I'm sure. And now they're like, oh, well, shit, now I guess we probably should get a backup. I mean, that's the main thing. It's like, is it really ever going to be an issue? Most likely not. But in some places it might be. Especially places, because most fiber bundles are buried. If you have a lot of natural disasters, so earthquakes especially, you should probably have several backups, because some of those are going to snap at some point in time.
Well, and like for this kind of thing, like
definitely
they wouldn't
depends.
even really need necessary 2 full length things. Like they could have 2 that just join out, 4 or 5 miles out into the desert. So it's like it's 2 into the town, but 1 out.
Something like that.
If that makes sense. Like you could do something like that too to lower some of the cost anyway.
Yeah. Some sort of way to separate the risk away from one line is really the only thing.
Oh.
Because it might not be feasible to have 2 full fiber bundles coming in, but some way of spreading the risk around so you don't have 1 point of failure. Good idea.
Well, let's see, that's the thing. In any sort of highly interconnected network like this, I mean, there are some projects that kind of address problems like this, like at least in disaster relief, like you were talking about. They have this feature in cell phones that I don't know if it's in right now, but what they've been working on is essentially it forms an impromptu network where instead of having communications go to towers and go to dedicated lines to are controlled.
Yeah, I've read about this. It's basically like an
it's like a
ad hoc
hive
network. It's basically like an ad hoc network between remote, like close proximity devices that spreads out.
Yeah, they use the Bluetooth. There's a few text apps that use the Bluetooth in phones to do that. That they've been using a lot in the the Beijing protests.
Yeah, because it's like
stuff.
if everyone just sort of acts like both a hotspot, essentially, it's like it'll hop around enough to where it needs to go. I mean, the route, it's not going to be very efficient. It's not going to have high throughput, but in a pinch, it is the difference between being able to contact people that you need to contact and being completely in the dark.
Yeah.
So, but they could apply something like that with this. I still think that what you said earlier about how we shouldn't have regulatory measures enforced for this, it should just be their own corporate, not necessarily corporate responsibility, but in the sense they want to maintain their own image. You say it should be in their best interest, so they should be motivated.
It's a self-serving interest.
Right, they should be motivated just because it's in their interest. Well, that's what's been happening so far. And so, really, this doesn't, because it hasn't happened very often, things are the way they are because that's good enough, essentially. I mean, and I don't think these people are going to remember this outage very easily after so many years because, are you really going to remember not being able to do certain things on the internet a year from now, 2 years from now?
No, it's not.
You might,
that big
but
a deal.
Yeah.
One last thing I will say in response to this, though, for all of the businesses who were affected by this, this is why businesses need a halfway decent non-internet based solution for what they do. And that's not possible for everybody, but networks can fail. Physical damage or otherwise like infiltrations on the network, networks can fail or be compromised, and so it's always a good idea to have just a normal analog in-person backup method. It's not going to be as efficient. It's not going to be as easy to use. There might not even have everybody that works with you know how to use it, but it needs to be in place so you can still do the absolute necessary things that you have to do.
Or you could just resort to IP over pigeon. They've done that. They've used the IP protocol to send messages over carrier pigeon before.
Over carrier pigeon. I think I saw an article about that. I don't think I read it.
That's awesome.
What's our next thing?
Hey, Gehrig, weigh in on this.
So internet is like totally a thing. No, but I don't know.
I mean,
Like very intelligent.
You guys have got it well covered. But like
I'm using you as comic relief at this point.
yeah, I know you are, you dick. But like it is one of those things where it's like not government, companies are gonna have to know other ways to do things, but also like the internet's kind of a thing that we need now. It's like Second Life, man.
Which is a game.
Well,
for those of you who don't know,
like,
it's a game where you pretend to actually have a life. It's for people who don't have lives.
It is.
Yeah.
Like it's
I may
not,
have offended some of our listeners. If you play Second Life, I don't really care. if I offended you.
You mean all two that we get on a regular basis?
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
them
well,
too.
we'll get more eventually.
Yeah. Anyway,
Move away from me, please.
moving on to our next thing that Jason just wanted to insert here about the Google.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. So, back before Google launched Android Lollipop or Android 5.0, they said that with that, all Android devices would come out with encryption enabled by default, which was a big deal because there's been a lot of security concerns about the NSA or just hackers in general getting access to people's phones and accounts and stuff that are on there. So having the device encrypted by default alleviates some of that concern because it's already set up for you. You don't have to take the time to do it yourself. And the first thing they said was the devices that upgraded software from the older version of Android to the newer one, they wouldn't have it turned on by default. You'd have to do that manually because with all the data you'd have on your phone by that point, it could take several hours to encrypt, and they didn't want to force you to go through that hour process whenever you updated. So that was the first thing. And then they recently, there have been phones that have been seen in the wild or even actually shipped that have Android 5.0 on them that didn't have encryption on by default, and you had to go do it manually. All of Google's devices that they do, so their Nexus line, have had it on by default, but certain other manufacturers haven't done that. And so people were kind of wondering what's up, and then there's a guideline thing for the carriers and the manufacturers that was found that says they aren't enforcing it to be always on right now, so it doesn't have to come out with encryption enabled, but manufacturers are strongly encouraged to do that by default because it will become mandatory in future versions of Android. So there's been no official word on why they kind of backed off from their position that it would be on by default. One of the theories is that manufacturers pushed back against them a little bit because when you have your phone encrypted, especially if you have a lot of data, it does slow it down a little bit because it has to encrypt and decrypt things kind of on the fly. Is basically what it does. So it can have a little bit of a performance hit. So that's the theory right now. It's good to see that they still plan on making it mandatory to have it on by default in the future. Would have been nice if it had happened already, but there's no real other information other than that. I just kind of wanted to throw that out there, let people know if they're in the tech community that, okay, you'll still have to encrypt your own phone for now.
Yeah. Well, all right.
Cool.
Encryption on phones.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie, I kind of latched onto the image of phones in the wild, like, David Attenborough, like, and here we have a phone.
Yeah.
We have
watch them gather around the Wi-Fi watering hole.
Yeah.
No Wi-Fi.
Where they gather their data on which they nourish themselves. Yeah. Oh no, here comes a giant tablet. It'll scoop up one of the smaller phones. The weak runts.
He's also CD foreign. No. All right.
Hey, Jason, I had a question for you. So with the encrypted Android devices, have you encrypted your phone then? Because you have an Android phone.
I have not yet.
Okay. Because do you know if
I'm planning on upgrading my phone soon, so I'm just gonna encrypt that phone when I get it, and that way it will be a much quicker process than encrypting all the data I have on here right now.
Okay. So does this just it's all encrypted on disk, so like if it was off, it would all the data would be encrypted, right? And it's just decrypts it in memory on the fly is what's happening, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, so really when you use the device,
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, okay, so if you're using the device, it doesn't to the end user look any different from an unencrypted phone. Like, does it require you to input the key every time you try and unlock it or anything? I don't think that would fly.
What you have to do is it requires your encryption password every time you start the phone, like from
that makes
complete
sense.
power off. and then you have to have a lock screen set up, usually a pin code lock screen. The original problem with encryption on phones was your encryption password and your lock screen pin had to be the same thing, which fundamentally was a bad idea because that means that your encryption password is probably pretty weak, because if you're going to put in something that you can put in on your phone every time you want to look at it, that's not super long. So now Google's kind of addressed that, and you have your encryption password, which can be this really long, complex thing that's really hard to break, and you put that in when you turn the phone on, and then you have your lock screen pin that's just a normal pin.
Okay, so that is the exact same tack taken by KeyPass to Android then, with its quick unlock feature. So that's that. I've used that. That's very nice. So it's very convenient.
Yeah.
So anyways, that's all. I just wanted to know that.
Alrighty, cool. Let's see. What was our next thing? Was just you can now purchase game time in World of Warcraft using gold. Garrig, start us off on this one since you're begging us to talk about games.
Yeah, I think it's cool because it's almost a model like EVE. EVE Online, for anyone that doesn't know, is a space game where you can get tokens for game time as you play, and it technically has a monthly subscription, but you don't have to pay it if you have enough of those tokens. That kind of thing. But it's cool because it's like people that have been playing for a long time that have amassed great, like banks of money. They're going to be able to just kind of play for free now, and they don't have to pay the subscription.
It's like almost a reward. It's like, you've been playing me for 10 years straight, so play me for free for another 10 years.
Well, and once you get the tokens,
it's kind of World of Warcraft's way.
Go ahead.
Jason, go.
Yeah. I was saying it's kind of World of Warcraft's way of being free to play without being actually free to play. Is if you've already played a ton, you have all this gold, it's like, keep playing. It's like you've probably given us more than enough money by this point. Keep playing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But,
it lowers the effective cost of playing.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm gonna finish my thought.
Sorry.
When you buy the tokens though, they become soulbound, so you can't trade them, which kind of sucks. Because then it would be nice if you could be like, my friend wants to get into this but doesn't have the money to pay for a subscription, so I could just give him some tokens. But
Yeah.
So.
Well. Like the way World of Warcraft is doing it is interesting because basically how it works is it through the auction house, actually. Like, if you want in-game gold, but like don't want to put the time and effort into like actually going out and getting it yourself, you purchase what is basically that token, and then you put it up on the auction house. And then another player buys that for gold. And so you get gold and they get game time.
Yeah. And
one
go ahead,
defining feature, because you mentioned it's like EVE.
Go.
I'm sorry, man. I keep walking all over you.
No, you're fine. Go.
Okay, well. All right. One defining feature, difference from EVE, is because, is that the players themselves do not determine the exchange rate.
Yeah.
That's determined by them, the developers or Blizzard, whatever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's like you put it up on the auction house. It's worth X amount of gold, and so you use that much gold, and you have a month of game time.
Yeah. This also alleviates a big problem they have with gold farming and gold farms in general, where people will take accounts and completely take everything from them or use them as I forget what they're called, like mules, basically.
Yeah.
And
or paying someone in China to mine you a bunch of gold and then send it to you
by mule. But like it alleviates that problem a little bit, just because then you can get gold without actually having to go through that kind of what would it be called, like that workaround, I guess.
Yeah. Or, heaven forbid, gaining the game through legal means. The gold that is, hard work.
Actually playing the game?
Determination.
Holy shit.
Hard work? Really?
Well,
who works hard? No.
Yeah. hard work in time.
Oh, jeez. You know what, though? The thing is, it is nice that there is an official capacity, because some people, I bet, do like to play WoW, but they don't have the time to amass the quantity of gold that they would probably want.
Yeah,
or
in
something.
order to play high level.
Yeah, so it's like this official exchange policy is kind of nice because it does, you know.
Like, if you have cash to spend, which, let's be honest, if you have a job and play WoW enough to actually care, you probably have some cash to spend because that's what you do.
Yeah.
So if you have cash to spend, like, it's a great way to get, a level 100 character who's all decked out, as opposed to having to work for hours and hours and hours just to get kind of there.
So, that's WoW.
Yes, it's very wow.
Hasn't changed much in the last 10 years, really.
Is it really 10 years old?
It's 10 years old.
More than 10, I think, now.
Isn't it?
Yeah, I was going to say, didn't it launch in 03?
No, because I had a 10-year anniversary just recently.
Well, yeah, but
Yeah,
I remember just recently as far back as 2013.
Yeah. So I'm pretty sure.
I think it was shit that happened 2 years ago, and I'm like...
10 years.
So.
Yeah.
Old game.
All right.
If I remember right, it came out in 2005, I think. I think it was
Justin's
2005
looking it up.
that it launched.
Okay, in different regions, it's like November 2004, February 2005.
Yeah, you're looking at
stuff
November.
like that.
I'm assuming November was the US.
Yeah.
Well,
most likely. Okay.
Yeah, the 2005, that was Europe, but not really that important.
No.
And again, hasn't changed much. Don't break something that isn't broken.
Yeah. Which it definitely is not broken for them. Sheesh.
No.
Right up until the pandas. Moving on.
Not the pandas. All right, move on. Go.
Good news for would-be game designers, myself included. The newest versions of Unity, what's it called? Unreal Engine 4 and Source will all be free.
This is fucking fantastic.
Yes,
That's
it is.
amazing.
You're gonna get you got Unity, which everybody uses to make funny games, comical
Everything.
games, whatever the hell they fucking want. You got Unreal,
Yeah.
which is really good. It's got better graphics capabilities, as far as I know.
Yeah,
Slightly,
actually,
but like
if you haven't seen them yet, look up some of the demos of the Unreal Engine stuff
Yeah.
that it can do. It's amazing what they can do in Unreal Engine 4.
and it's very AAA. And like I was looking it up the other day because I'm more interested in making 2D games, and like there's full-on tutorials and free plugins for that.
And then
So-
Source is what I'm most excited about because so much is born from Source. Like
Yeah.
Yes.
you got Gary's mod and just any pretty much most Valve games or Steam games are built on a Source engine. So it's just like ugh.
Yeah, and admittedly, I'm not as versed on Source. I haven't done much research into that. But what makes this interesting, especially on the Unity end, for anyone not in the know, is up until this newest version, Unity was free, but there was a lot of features missing. Like there was a lot of lighting, for instance, that I needed to use in my Cedar project and couldn't because it just wasn't available for non-pro users. I ended up having to buy a really expensive license that I only used for a month. But now all of those features 100% free. The only thing you would have to pay for is like all of the extra like team building stuff that you would only use if you were an actual development house looking to streamline your process as much as possible.
I want to know what are the takes that everybody takes because I know Source is completely free. They never take anything.
Unity doesn't take anything. Like they just set it up so that the tool set you get with Pro gives you just that much more. So if you're, if you're even a 5-man team, like, and have the capital, Pro is worth it still. Like I would still say that. But, if you're a 1 or 2-man team and are on a budget, the free version's fine.
So if you're looking to make Five Nights at Freddy's, Unity is okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Unreal takes, if you make any money off of it, they take 5%, but they only take 5% up to $3,000, which means you'd have to make $60,000 to reach that cap.
That's not bad. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was Unreal?
Yeah, the Unreal Engine. And that's like if you make any money. If you don't make any money, you don't own anything. You know.
Huh.
And if you make $5, you'll what? 50 cents?
Something like that.
If
25
even
cents?
that, yeah.
Yeah. So, you know, like it very much opens your options. Source, again, I'm not sure. I honestly haven't read the article because I was too hyped about other shit at the time. But like just the fact that all of these dev things are free is very exciting because it means like people are going to be able to make PS4 games that look pretty but are doing things other than cover-based shooting in the 1880s with, you know, special weapons that are really just from Modern Warfare.
Yeah, it's... I think probably the reason that we're getting all these for free now is because, as much as I hate to admit it, because I love them so much, AAA game developers have kind of flubbed the past year.
Yeah.
They've not been doing great. So indie has really been a big focus for a lot of people in terms of like actually making and playing games. The indie scene has kind of been winning, at least this past year. So I think they're doing this to
you got
give them
titles
the tools.
like
Yeah.
Well, because like you have titles like Five Nights at Freddy's, which makes money hand over fist, and he's got 3 of them out in less than a year, and all of them make money.
Yeah.
So it's just like that's a cash cow. And some of the best games I've played over the last year are relatively simple, but in short games. Like anything by Telltale is great, and those are really cheaply built. Or the latest game I played for the channel actually was Life is Strange. And that was just made by some small company, small French developer, and Square Enix published it basically on a whim, and it was $20, and it's the best one I've played thus far this year. It was great. Yeah, and it's not even done yet because it's episodic.
Generally those types of games don't appeal to me as much. I am, as much as I'd probably get hate for it on the internet, I do generally prefer like the AAA titles, the big blockbuster stuff with massive special effects and crazy set piece design. That's just one of the things I like. But the indie space in gaming has been on fire for the past... It's not even just the past year. It's been great the past year, but it's been doing well since probably the past 2 or 3 years. It's if you make a decent indie game, it's a license to print money.
Yeah.
Well,
pretty much.
And it's getting to the point,
like, especially if
go ahead, Dave.
Any room for sequels or anything like that. I'm done.
Yeah.
Go.
It's interesting too because you're now getting 13-year-old kids coming in and they're literally making games better than, you know, some of the AAA titles, and it's just like, all right, this is amazing because now they get to come in and live their dream basically, and they get paid for it being, you know, a kid. Like, it's really cool, and I like where it's going.
Yeah,
like,
and it's great to see that because
you know, and one
you
thing
see
that I
and
think,
it's like, well, what are they going to do in the future? It's like these are going to be some amazing people.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. You were saying this?
Well, okay. Why the yields, I guess is the good term, why a yield from an indie game, indie games in general this last year has been so high compared to AAA titles, because I think that underscores a need for management tools. Because like you mentioned that these the tools themselves to make the games are getting either released for free or drastically reduced prices.
Yeah.
But they'll still have you pay for the team management stuff.
Yeah,
because
which is totally necessary.
Yeah. In software development, there's this phrase. It goes in a lot of it came from other places too, but it says that adding people to a late project only makes it later.
Yeah.
And because if you look at the number of communication pathways between any number of people, like if each person has to talk to everyone else on the team, that's, I think it's n times n minus 1 over 2, and that scales as n squared.
Yeah.
So if you have 20 people, 25 people on a dev team, how many people are really communicating what needs to be communicated in an efficient manner?
Which arguably is the biggest problem with AAA deving right now, is that you've got these teams made up of literally hundreds, and not even in one location. Like, you'll have 200 here and 30 across town and 50 down in, Nevada somewhere, all trying to make this game in 2 years and just churn it out. And which is really hard, and like half of them are newly graduated people from, their whatever art college they chose that they plan on using for this project, firing and rehiring at the exact same rate so they never have to pay them more. Which that's like industry standard right now.
See,
Go ahead.
No, just...
You go.
Said that sounds about like why Halo Master Chief Collection is still fucking broken. It's because it was 5 studios making it, and then they tried to stitch it together at the end, and their stitching sucked.
It's like, you got this part's made of leather, this one's cotton. I'm not even sure what the fuck that is.
This is the 80s?
Yeah, they released a content update yesterday. It supposedly fixed some stuff. I haven't played it yet, but the fact that it took them until... If it fixed everything until yesterday, which we're recording this on March 4th, so March 3rd they released it. It took them till March 3rd to fix a game that came out before Christmas is bullshit. That's all I have to say.
Like, it is that bloated... It's that bloated structure that's problem. But unfortunately, that's probably not changing anytime soon. I mean, and this is the same industry that put out Tomb Raider, which sold, I want to say 6 million copies in the first month, and it barely came out even.
Which Tomb Raider?
At the time.
Yeah.
The newest one.
The, top-down one, or the actual action-adventure one?
The actual action-adventure one.
That was a really good game.
They broke even.
It should have sold so much more. It was amazing.
Yeah. Well, no, that's the thing. 5 or 6 million copies is a great haul. It just, they were so bloated in their costs,
Was that made by Square? Because that would make sense. Why?
Yeah.
That would make sense.
Yeah.
Square tends to be a little bloated.
Is bad at
I love Square, but they have a bloat problem.
Well, their biggest problem, or this was their biggest problem for, I want to say 5 years, was they seemed like they were wanting to make movies more than they wanted to make games.
Yeah, that's true.
And they're finally kind of starting to change that because, games are actually getting made, like Kingdom Hearts 3 and
Final Fantasy 15.
Final Fantasy. Yeah, it's like these games suddenly actually exist when most of them, Final Fantasy 15, for instance, was actually called Final Fantasy 13, some sort of subtitle that I don't remember off the top of my head.
Versus, I do believe.
Versus
started as
is what Final Fantasy 15 is.
Yeah.
They debuted footage of that, I want to say, the second year into the PS3.
Really?
Yeah, it's been
I don't remember that.
Yeah.
They must have completely gutted it and changed everything though. If it's going to be its entirely own game with an individual world and story and characters.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I do believe they still are using something very similar to the Kingdom Hearts engine, just tweaked.
Well, that's all it was.
Yeah. Anyway,
Versus, was a Kingdom Hearts tweaked, and then all of a sudden, it was just kind of it just kind of fell off.
It just disappeared
of the earth, and then it showed up as Final Fantasy 15. So,
yeah. Well, anyway, that's about our time for this week. Yeah, make sure to comment, subscribe. You'll get another hearing of that in about what, 10 seconds, and you know, have a good day. Also, Garrig has promotional material.
Oh yeah. I want to ask everybody to please go over to my Twitch channel at twitch.tv/Hegrig. Tayson will put a link in the
that will be
the description because he's cool.
in the link dump.
And
we'll try to get him every week when we can.
Yeah, and remember, the average length of a penis is 5.16 inches.
Thank you for that.
Okay.
Public service announcement.
Yeah. Okay.
We have a PSA over here.
We're here.
So, ladies, you're probably
teach.
going to be disappointed.
We're here to teach and facilitate your learning. That's what we're here
Rainbow.
Oh God.
for. Let's end this train wreck.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to this week's End User Input Podcast. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and favorite, and leave a comment below. Feel free to follow us on Twitter at the links provided below. Also follow the links to relevant content. See you next week!